SEC play is finally here.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, welcome into a special crossover edition of Locked On Auburn and Locked On Mizzou. I'm Zach Blackerby, host of Locked On Auburn. That is John Miller, host of Locked On Mizzou. And thank you so much for making our shows your first listen every single day. John, SEC play starts in college basketball this weekend. Of course, the Missouri Tigers heading to Auburn to take on the number 2 ranked Auburn Tigers in Neville Arena. We were talking before we clicked record. I mean, this is significant because there seems to be no bad teams in the SEC based on the non-conference slate.
It's really incredible, and I haven't had a ton of time to actually watch college basketball outside of Missouri, I'll be honest with you. So then when I'm catching up on the conference, I'm going, okay, Auburn is number 1 in KenPom. That's pretty impressive. Tennessee's undefeated. Florida's undefeated. I'm looking down through the entire list. Where are the bad teams? I'm telling you, Missouri's off to an impressive start, and KenPom has them 13th or 14th in the conference. I'm telling my fans, guys, be optimistic. This is just going to be, every single game's going to be competitive. This should be about as fun of a conference season as we've ever seen. So I can't wait.
I think so. I'm there with you. And so what to expect from this matchup? I mean, we've seen every SEC team kind of have a quality win, it seems like. Obviously, y'all's is very significant, beating the number 1 team in college basketball at the time, Kansas, and it looks like y'all kind of
the hated Kansas Jayhawks for you Auburn fans too, in case you're not aware of how much we do hate the Jayhawks.
Sure, that's fine. I have no issue with that. No issue at all. But I mean, I think that kind of shows the upside of what Missouri can bring. And so I say this to Auburn folks, don't look at the 55th ranked Missouri team according to KenPom. This is a team that could beat anybody in college basketball.
Absolutely. And the thing with Missouri is, and don't let last season fool you either. Actually, Dennis Gates' second season was a disaster. The Tigers were winless in SEC play. Well, his first season, he had an incredible 25-win season. Third year, looking a lot closer to the original. Hopefully that year two's a fluke, because Missouri in the portal added a lot of depth, a lot of size. Josh Gray from South Carolina is a really big center, a guy who is, to me, you can put him on a guy like Johni Broome, and if his size and actual girth, his actual weight, if that's something that's effective against him, great. Well, then Missouri has a lot of other options in terms of 6'10" Trent Pierce, who you can play at small forward. This looks like much more of a Florida State Leonard Hamilton-like team defensively, forcing turnovers in the passing lanes with their length and athleticism. This is just a much different Missouri team than last season. Obviously, Auburn is really good and deserves to be a significant favorite here, but it wouldn't shock me if Missouri could make this a really competitive game, even a victory.
Yeah, if this was in Missouri, I would say, hey, I think Auburn's an upset watch here. Auburn just doesn't lose in Neville too often, and so I do think that's going to be a factor, John. But I mean, you talked about the matchup there. I mean, the size around the basket, I think, is going to be a huge component in this. And look, on paper, we've said that a million times. It seems like this year, Auburn's non-conference slate has been just absolutely loaded with Maui, with going to Houston, going to Duke. And we've talked about it before. Okay, this is a team that Auburn's playing against that should be able to shut down Johni Broome. And it just hasn't really happened yet. I mean, he's the leader for player of the year. FanDuel has him as the odds-on betting favorite by a pretty wide margin over Cooper Flagg. We'll see what happens over the course of the season. But if what you're saying happens, where Missouri is able to limit Johni Broome and force other folks to beat you, I do think it could get interesting. But until somebody does it, John, I'm a little you got to show me. You got to show me that you could shut down Johni.
Oh, that's totally fair, and I'm really not making the case that that's going to happen. I'm just simply saying that Missouri does have a lot of options, a lot of different bodies, a lot of potential ways to at least bother him. And another thing I'd say, really offensively, I think one of the things, if you flip it, I'm saying offensively from Missouri's perspective, one of the best teams in the country at drawing fouls. If they're able to somehow get him into foul trouble early, that type of thing off dribble penetration, because the Missouri Tigers just relentlessly attack the basket this season. That's something to watch as well.
Yeah. We've seen Dylan Cardwell, who's been at Auburn seemingly forever. He's the other center that they'll go to a good bit. And he's played better than he has at any point in his career, especially offensively. He's always been a decent defender, but he seems to have taken a step forward as far as being able to score, had his first double-double of his career the last time out. And so we'll see. But yeah, I mean, obviously he's not Johni Broome. I mean, that is very clear. The other thing with this is, okay, if Missouri is able to limit Johni, which once again, I do think is an if, like Auburn has seen different guards step up at different times this season. If they need to go that route, I guess Missouri folks, like, keep an eye on Miles Kelly, keep an eye on the freshman Tahaad Pettiford, Denver Jones over the last few games. It's like he's forgotten how to miss from three, but he's so smart with his shot selection. He'll go like a quiet 3 of 4 from three or 3 for 3 from three over the last month or so of the season. Perimeter defense. I mean, that's what makes this Auburn team so good, is they can throw so much at you offensively. I mean, Missouri's going to have their hands full.
Absolutely. And one thing I was going to ask you, and before you kind of just answered it for me there, I think, but I'll throw it anyway. I was going to ask you just in general about Auburn's guards, but specifically about their ball handling, because I do think Missouri is going to have to turn Auburn over to win. And now I'm seeing that, Auburn is number 1 in the entire country in turnover percentage offensively. Yeah. So no, they do not turn over the ball. That was one thing. Certainly last season, I kind of thought Auburn's guards weren't quite up to the Bruce Pearl standard, and I thought that kind of held them back a little bit. Whereas a few years ago when they made the Final Four, I was actually a big Auburn backer and had them in my Final Four. Humble brag there, I know. But seriously, I do 19? Think that the point is...
You had Auburn in the Final Four in 19?
Yes, I did, absolutely.
No way.
I had it. It's on the air. It's in the Locked On Mizzou archives, I promise you.
How about that? What a flex.
Thank you very much. But no, that is a true statement. But the only reason I really brought it up is because, to me, that was the difference last year. And especially if Auburn's ball handling is on point, which it very much seems to be statistically, no wonder Auburn's a double-digit plus favorite here. They deserve to be.
Which is a little unique because Tahaad Pettiford, a freshman, is handling the basketball a good bit. And that workload seems to be increasing as the season goes on, as it should. He's been phenomenal, especially in big games. And we'll see if this one counts as a big game. It's the SEC opener, so I certainly think that it should count. What does that look like? Is there more pressure on him? How does he deal with that? Then the other guy handling it a ton is Denver Jones, who is just as steady as it gets. So we'll see. But yeah, Auburn a year ago, really the last few years, it seems like the guard play has been very inconsistent. And so what does Bruce Pearl do? He goes out and gets Tahaad Pettiford out of high school, and he attacks the transfer portal hard. And then I guess also develops Denver Jones as well. So turnovers, if it comes down to turnovers, like Auburn from an offensive efficiency standpoint is the best in college basketball right now. So who wins this game? We give you our predictions next, right here on this crossover edition of Locked On Auburn and Locked On Mizzou. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel's America's #1 sportsbook. John, can you imagine wagering anywhere other than with our friends at FanDuel?
Absolutely not. No, they have the best place to go, especially for live betting. It's all right there in front of you.
The crazy thing, let's say your New Year's resolution in 2025 was to get after it on the sports gambling sphere. Well, there's no better place to start than FanDuel. Guess how much money you get? I know you know the answer to this. If your first $5 bet hits, guess how much bonus cash you get?
Tell me, Zach. Tell me how much.
I know you know, but it's $250 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet hits. That's insane. I know you're a money guy. That's an insane return on investment.
That is quite the ROI. It really is.
I think so. So, hey, head over to FanDuel.com. Today, it just means more over at FanDuel. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at Rocket Money. Talk about money again. New Year's resolutions, baby. Let's all get better with our cash. Let's all kind of keep a better eye on what we're spending our money on. John, there are so many everything has a subscription now. Everything.
Absolutely everything.
Everything. It's like you got 10 different streaming services. Look, Rocket Money, it compiles all of your subscriptions, and you can make the call of like, wait, I don't use this anymore, or this isn't worth the $12.99. and you can cancel the subscription right from the app. It's super user-friendly. Really, really love Rocket Money. Cancel your unwanted subscription to reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn and Locked On Mizzou your first listen every single day. John, I'll open up the floor to you. Who wins this game between Auburn and Missouri?
Well, I got to go with Auburn, unfortunately. I think the proof is in the pudding. They've been as good as anybody in the country at the very least so far, I would say. A close loss to Duke. I think we can live with that. You're not going to go undefeated in a college basketball season. And plus just those matchup factors that I mentioned. Missouri's defense just relies on chaos so much. But if you're able to handle that chaos, you can find your way to some easy baskets. I will say to all you Auburn fans out there, this is the first time really Missouri's probably been at full strength completely all season. This is a deep team. Caleb Grill is back. He had sat out a few games with a neck injury. Tony Perkins, a guard from Iowa, started the season a little bit slowly with an injury. He's rounding into form quite nicely. So this may be the best version of Missouri. You could be seeing it right now.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that's good insight there for sure. I think Auburn wins as well. Let me ask you this, though. I mean, if I'm on the Missouri side of this, I'm looking at that Kansas win and saying, like, hey, why can't we do this again? Why can't we do this again? Is Kansas as good as, like, the number one team in the country, like they were ranked at that time? No, but they're a good basketball team. They're a really good basketball team. And it's like, if you can beat Kansas, like, you've proven that you can compete with anybody.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And actually, that was my take when I scouted Kansas coming into the Missouri game. They were actually coming off a loss to Creighton in the previous game. So a little bit easier to say that when you're watching a loss coming into it. But I was like, this isn't the number one team in the country to me. I think this is more like maybe the 10th best team in the country, which is obviously, as you said, still a great team. But the thing with, again, Missouri just... Back to the chaos thing. Missouri really turned over Kansas over and over again in the first half and just had even DeJuan Harris, who is as good of a pure ball handling pass first point guard as there is in the country. I think this is his 5th year in college basketball. Missouri had him kind of out of sorts, especially in the first half. Second half, Kansas made a huge comeback. Missouri kind of had to hold on at the end. So again, to that point, if Auburn can find a way to handle that chaos, they'll probably be fine.
One thing I'm looking at with Missouri, just some of these, loose stats, but it seems like you guys have a different leading scorer like every night. And that could be dangerous. That could be a problem.
Absolutely. I think there was 8 straight games there at one point where a different guy led Missouri in scoring. So yeah, without a doubt.
Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that speaks to the depth I've been talking about in this program for sure. Yeah. Good call.
Yeah. So I don't think this is going to be, an Auburn like walk in the park. So look at more than just the rankings. This Missouri basketball team is good for sure. So, hey, John, for all the Auburn folks watching, if they want more Missouri content, where do they go?
Well, obviously, you got to check out Locked On Mizzou on YouTube, wherever you get audio podcasts, of course. If you want to follow me on social media for the quick hits on X, how about at Locked On Mizzou and all the other platforms too?
Yep. And for all the Mizzou folks, check out Locked On Auburn. Same place you find Locked On Mizzou. Locked On Auburn is there as well. Please like the video. Please subscribe to our channel. So we'll see you next time. This has been a crossover edition of Locked On Mizzou and Locked On Auburn, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.